Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the English podcast with Mandy and Mark. I'm Mandy.
And I'm Mark. We're here to make learning English fun and easy.
In today's episode, we're going to be talking about something everyone can relate to, our neighborhoods. We'll learn some key words and phrases that will help you describe where you live to your English-speaking friends.
Right. Whether your neighborhood is busy or quiet, in the city or the countryside, we've got you covered. Make sure to stick around until the end of the episode for some fun exercises to test what you've learned. And don't forget to leave us your answers in the comments section.
So, Mark, tell me a little about where you live. What's your neighborhood like?
Well, I live in a pretty quiet residential area, not too far from the city center. It's a mix of houses and apartments, with lots of trees and green spaces. It's great to be close to the city, but still have some peace and quiet.
That sounds really nice. Do you have any shops or restaurants within walking distance?
Yeah, there's a small supermarket just around the corner, which is super convenient. And a couple of cafes and restaurants within a 5-minute walk. Nothing too fancy, but enough for everyday needs.
That's great. It sounds like you have a good balance. My neighborhood is quite different. It's much busier, being closer to the city center.
Oh, really? What's it like living in a busier area?
It has its pros and cons. I love having everything at my fingertips: shops, restaurants, bars, you name it. And the public transport is fantastic. But it can be noisy, especially on weekends.
I can imagine. So, what kind of buildings are in your neighborhood? Are there mainly apartments?
It's mostly apartment buildings, some old and some quite modern. There are a few houses tucked away on quieter streets, but they're definitely in the minority.
It sounds like our neighborhoods both have their own unique charms. It's interesting how different they are even though we live in the same city.
Absolutely. I think it's what makes cities so interesting. What do you like best about your neighborhood, Mark?
I love the community spirit here. Everyone is really friendly, and we often have street parties and events. It makes it feel like home. How about you, Mandy?
For me, it's definitely the convenience. I love being able to walk everywhere and have so many options for things to do and see right on my doorstep.
That's awesome. It's all about finding the right fit for you, isn't it?
Exactly. It's great that we can both enjoy where we live, even though our neighborhoods are so different.
Speaking of enjoying where we live, I'm thinking of checking out that new bakery that opened down the street later. Want to join me?
I'd love to, but I promised to meet a friend at that new park near me. Maybe another time?
Sounds good. We can compare notes on the parks and bakeries in our neighborhoods later.
Definitely. It's always fun to discover new places.
Now that we've talked about our different neighborhoods, let's go over some of the vocabulary we used. You can take notes or just listen along. Mandy, would you like to start us off?
Sure. We use the phrase residential area. This describes a part of town where there are mostly homes and apartments, not a lot of offices or businesses. For example, I like living in a residential area because it's quiet.
Right. I mentioned that my neighborhood has green spaces. This just means areas with grass and trees, like parks and gardens. These are lovely places to relax or go for a walk.
We talked about places being within walking distance. This means you can easily walk there from your home. It's not too far. For example, there's a grocery store within walking distance, so I don't need to drive.
And I said my area has enough for everyday needs. This refers to the basic things we need in our daily lives, like food, toiletries, and other essentials.
I described my neighborhood as being busy, which means there's a lot of activity, people, and traffic. It's the opposite of quiet.
Cities often have great public transport, which refers to buses, trains, subways, and other transportation systems that anyone can use.
I mentioned apartment buildings, which are buildings with many separate apartments where people live. They're also often called blocks of flats in British English.
And I talked about the community spirit in my neighborhood. This describes a feeling of belonging and togetherness among the people who live there.
Finally, we talked about finding the right fit. This means finding a place that suits your needs and preferences.
That was a good review of the vocabulary, Mandy. I hope everyone is taking notes.
Me too. Remember, using new vocabulary is the best way to improve your English. All right, now it's time to test your knowledge with some questions about our conversation. If you were paying close attention, this should be a piece of cake. Don't forget to leave your answers in the comments section below. Ready, Mark?
Ready when you are. Let's see what our listeners remember. First question. What kind of area does Mark live in?
Good one. And how about this? What is within walking distance of Mark's home?
Nice. Okay, what does Mandy like best about her neighborhood?
That was a good one. Last question. We both described our neighborhoods as being quite different. How would you describe your ideal neighborhood? Tell us in the comments.
Well, that was a fun chat about our neighborhoods. We hope you learned some useful vocabulary today.
Remember, being able to describe where you live is a great way to improve your conversational English.
And don't be afraid to practice using these new words and phrases with your English-speaking friends.
That's all for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode. We love reading your comments, so let us know what you thought of this episode and any other topics you'd like us to discuss. See you next time.